Marianne, what's in your memo?
Thanks, Robbie. Among Republican congresspeople, there seems to be one lone woman who's willing to say publicly what many must be thinking. Despite the political risks that are posed by daring to question Elon Musk's chainsaw approach to gutting federal agencies, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska has more guts than the whole lot of them. Whereas most of her colleagues are, in her words, quote, not saying a word because they're afraid they're going to be taken down, Murkowski is not willing to put her career or even her party before her allegiance to the people of her state or to her country. Despite Musk's claims that he's there to get rid of fraud and abuse, Murkowski apparently knows a fraudster and an abuser when she sees one, and she isn't willing to be silent about it. Quote, I'm not going to compromise my own integrity, she said, by hiding from my words when I feel they need to be spoken. And it may be that Elon Musk has decided he's going to take the next $1 billion that he makes off of Starlink and put it directly against me. Apparently, Murkowski doesn't care. In the best tradition of politicians who have been willing to put their conscience before the cynical calculations of political expediency, the senator knows a wrong when she sees it, and she sees it now. Regarding the DOGE cuts throwing tens of thousands of lives into unnecessary chaos, undercutting the efficacy of programs that help millions of poor and middle-class citizens, Murkowski points out that, quote-unquote, they're traumatizing people. As in many red states, the federal government is a major employer in Alaska. There are 15,000 federal workers there, and according to Murkowski, quote, many of these abrupt terminations will do more harm than good. She also knows how government is meant to work. It should not be Musk's prerogative to order the dismantling of agencies that were established by Congress and receive congressional appropriations. Just yesterday, the senator said this, quote, to have the executive basically come in and dismantle something that was legislatively created, that's outside the bounds of the executive. So it requires us in the legislative branch to then assert our responsibility, which is to not cede the authority. Murkowski is showing great courage to stand up to her party brass this way. Will she be the one lone voice that ultimately begins a choir? Maybe not yet in Congress, but throughout the country, some of the president's most loyal supporters are beginning to voice some negative feelings about the effects of the Musk machine. From veterans protesting throughout the country, to angry Republicans filling congressional town halls, to frustrated cabinet secretaries asking how they're supposed to lead their agencies if Musk is going around firing its needed personnel. Surely the president is beginning to hear the complaints. It's anybody's guess why President Trump is continuing to so loyally support a man who is starting to cut into his own popularity, especially given that more and more of the Maga crowd are beginning to voice their dissent. When Trump attended an NCAA Men's Division I Wrestling Championship in Philadelphia on Saturday, he was accompanied by his now ubiquitous sidekick, Elon Musk. But Musk didn't receive quite the same welcome that the president did. Katie Travis, a 48-year-old wrestling mom from Montana, told the New York Times that Musk's constant presence at Trump's side, quote-unquote, looks ridiculous, and that his enormous influence over Trump made the president look weak. She said, quote, it makes him look like he's kissing ass to get money. Now, one thing about Maga, a trait that I actually wish we saw more of coming from Democrats, is that, yes, they're loyal, that's for sure. But when they feel that their loyalty has been betrayed, they've proven before that they can withhold that love. A friend of mine in South Carolina this weekend reported seeing a spate of upside-down Trump flags as she traveled through the state. And that's even before those Social Security checks stop coming. It's even before those Medicaid cuts start affecting Trump voters who desperately need those funds. It's even before inflation gets worse in response to the president's tariffs on Canada and elsewhere. Now, so far, the Trump coalition in Congress and throughout the country, as Robbie pointed out, continues to hold strong. But we'll see what happens. The MAGA base is definitely capable of electing a president. It remains to be seen when and if they might say, enough is enough.
Well, look, I agree with Lisa Murkowski that legislatively enacted government agencies and bodies must be legislatively dismantled, not dismantled at the whim of the executive or the executive's advisor, Elon Musk. Yes,
the
that is
unelected
true.
bureaucrat at his side?
I would not describe him as an unelected
Oh, no, you wouldn't,
bureaucrat,
because he's a businessman.
But the unelected bureaucrats are
We've
the
become a
actual
nation
people
of
who staff these
idolaters.
agencies he's trying to shut down.
Business people are our new god.
But I think it's funny that, so there's objection, oh, now she's mad that the legislature gave away too much of its power. Part of the process of giving away the power was setting up all these agencies that actually implement government policy at the behest of the executive. So now when they're trying to dismantle it, she's saying, oh, wait, no, that's our prerogative. Okay, well, I wish Congress had retained its lawmaking, governing role all along, the way our founders intended. You and I talk about this all the time. Now they want to they want to only use their power when it slows down when it stops the executive from actually shrinking government. They're happy to give away their power when it's about growing the power of government.
Okay,
and that's a problem to me.
The legislative branch legislates.
Yes.
It is the prerogative and is the job of the executive to execute. So it is the prerogative of the executive branch to execute. So you can't blame the president of either party for actually using the executive power in setting up the agencies that the legislative branch established. And also, in terms of the various ways in which the legislative branch has refused to give up its power, I think Lisa Murkowski has been someone who has stood up before now. You say, where has she been before? She has opposed the president's ideas about Greenland. She came out against the Hegseth nomination. So and I grew up at a time when Republicans in Congress did have the spine that was necessary to stand up to the president of their own party when they felt that he had done the wrong thing. So Lisa Murkowski is in a proud tradition, no longer in vogue in the Republican Party, but it was once a proud tradition of standing up not only for the power of the legislative branch, but even when that means standing up against
I
the plans
appreciate
of the
that she's
executive
an
when
independent.
the executive has gone rogue.
I appreciate that she's an independent-minded Republican senator. I'm all for independent-minded people voting their conscience or their principles. I just don't think her conscience and principles particularly overlap with mine. Now, I have celebrated the standing up to Trump or disagreeing with Trump that has been done by, for instance, Thomas Massie and Rand Paul, who both opposed this horrific continuation of the exact same Biden budget that is a fundamental betrayal of the Trump-Musk DOGE plan that all of the Republicans, all the rest of them, were happy to sign off on. So Massie voted against Trump on that, Rand Paul voted against Trump on that, and I celebrate and support them doing that because I agree with their policy there. So it's not, for me, it's not like, oh, good, you stood up to someone. It's like, well, what are you standing up to them over? So I don't think Lisa Murkowski is standing up to the administration on things I agree with, although, yes, if more people voted their conscience or their principles, that'd be fine, but it's about what the actual policy is to me, not the independence. I don't want them to be independent if I think Trump's doing the right thing. I do want them to be independent if I think Trump's doing the wrong thing. So that's the way around it.
What are your thoughts about the fact that there are so many angry Republicans at these congressional town halls? So many of the veterans, remember, 30% of our federal workforce is veterans. So we have these veterans protests all over the country. Many of these guys voted for Trump. They are protesting. They are angry. What do you think about those?
Do you know the first thing I would do if I had power of the government was?
Oh, I can only imagine.
I would eliminate the preference for veterans in federal hiring. I would eliminate it. We are a merit-based society, no affirmative action, no race-based admissions, none of that. This is the same thing. The most for government workers who are paid by the taxpayers, I want the most qualified people in these positions. I don't want racial considerations. I don't want geographic considerations. I don't want veteran status consideration, except where appropriate, except where that would make you, if it's a defense-oriented role where your veteran status is relevant to the job, then yes, on paper, that's fine. But no special accommodations for anyone based on some artificial status. If we need to take care of veterans in terms of their mental health or their physical health or any of that, whatever obligations we have to them, that's fine. We are not going to make our federal government run more inefficiently by these kinds of identity-based notion that that's how you do staffing, or that the federal government is primarily a jobs program. It's not. It's to provide services that are essential to the American people that should be the purview of government. There are fewer of them, in my view, that should be the purview of the federal government, but there will still be some. That's fine. It's just not a jobs program for people who can't get jobs the other way. That's the wrong way to think about it.
The problem that many of us have with this obsession with merit-based, is that there are many people who do not fit the mold of those who have the greatest privilege to get ahead in America, who too often are not able to rise to the level of what you would define as the greatest merit. And that's why we have programs which make it easier for people of disadvantage, who are disabled in some way. Yes, sometimes people of color. Yes, sometimes people who come from less privileged backgrounds. And yes, sometimes veterans. We want to be an inclusive society. We want to live our values. I don't see anywhere in our Declaration of Independence or in our Constitution where there is this support for this idea of everything's merit, merit. There are different kinds of merit. You say on one hand, because I believe what's the point here about veterans, and I think it's a good thing. The issue is, do we or do we not owe our veterans something? I think it speaks to something good in the heart of the American consciousness that we do believe that we owe our veterans something.
We owe them.
You say, of course, if they have mental problems, yeah, but it's more than the mental problems. They want to come back, they want to assimilate in society and get their lives back.
You say, do we owe our veterans something? Yes. We owe them to not waste their lives so callously in our various foreign interventions all over the globe.
I agree with you entirely.
To much more zealously guard and protect them.
You and I agree.
Which is why veterans within the Republican coalition have always been more supporters more likely to support a more America First, or what we used to call, like Ron Paul was the most popular Republican among veterans when he ran in 2008, because he did not want to waste their lives in costly, disastrous foreign entanglements. So that's what I would say.
Every once in a while, I just wish you'd mention that George Bush invaded Iraq.
Yes.
Okay? Would you just you keep talking about the Republican Party is almost like a bunch of peaceniks or something. That is not the case. Secondly, in terms of the veterans,
with the participation of most of...
How many people join the Army, join the armed services, because that's the only way that they can get an education. That's the only way that they can get the kind of training that they need to hopefully have a life at the end of that military service that would actually allow them a shot at the American dream. That itself is immoral. So I do feel that the trend in America today to have a real strong feeling about support for veterans in whatever way they need is a good thing, and we must protect it against this merit-based obsession, which is now being used to just obliterate any values-based concern that we place into any policy, domestic or foreign, in this country.
Well,
if we're not good, we can't be great, Bobby. If we're not good, Robbie, if we're not good, we cannot be great.
Well, tell us what you think about this subject. More Rising right after this.